Last week, I left you with a warning. I said the most dangerous seat in the house is the front row, informed, moved, completely unchanged. Tonight, I want to talk to the person in that seat. And if you own a Bible app, a podcast queue, and a stack of half read books on becoming a better you, lean in because I might be talking to you. Let me ask you something. Uncomfortable, maybe, but still yet, I need to ask. When was the last time a sermon actually changed your life? Not moved you, changed you. When did a teaching, a book, a podcast last alter what you actually do on the, let's just say, ordinary day, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever? Because here's what nobody says out loud. You can be the most taught, most informed, most underlined Bible-based person in the building and the least transformed at the same time. You can know everything and apply absolutely nothing. Let me paint you a picture. There's a man who goes to a restaurant every single week. He studies the menu like it's scripture. He can describe every dish, the ingredients, and the preparation. He reads it. He highlights it. He discusses it with everyone at the table. And then he leaves without ever ordering, without ever eating. And he goes home hungry, a full mind, and an empty stomach. And he cannot understand why he's still starving. Family, that man is the believer who has confused hearing about the meal with eating it. And too many of us have been reading the menu for 20 years, wondering why we're still starving. This is Dimension 4 application, and it is the hinge the whole renewed mind swings on. Awareness lets you see it. Alignment showed you the gap. Accountability gave you a witness, but none of it becomes transformation until it becomes action in your life. Tonight, 5 things. The first 2, take the shame off because I'm going to show you why you've been applying nothing and calling it growing. And it's not the reason you think. But the third one is going to sting just because I'm going to show you what really happens to a true or to the truth you hear and refuse to obey. It doesn't sit there neutral. It turns into something dangerous. And the fourth one, this is where it flips. Because you think application takes more willpower and a 10-step plan. I'm going to hand you the one thing, the one step that changes everything. And at the end, of course, the free tool, as always, because I believe the tool itself is the key. The free tool that shows you exactly where you're hearing and doing absolutely nothing. If you didn't know, my name is Dwayne Dwyer. I go by the Mindset Coach. This is Coach's Corner. And tonight, we stop reading the menu.
Hey, mindset shift, go. Yeah, we locked in tight. Clean heart, new life. Bass hit, feel right. Fake talk all night. Coach's Corner wave. We don't drift, we brave. Pressure make praise. We don't chase, we pray. Mindset Academy. Built on legacy. Turn pain to recipe. Now it's joy and energy. Hands up, no fear. New steps right here. If you hear that call, you can stand up tall. From the fight to the win. Yeah, let the change begin. Mindset shift, renew your mind. Go. We move with the light. We shine in the night. Mindset shift, renew your mind. Go. Coach's Corner sound, make the whole room bounce. Kingdom in my talk, purpose in my walk. Always cut off, new grace won't stop. Hustle with a halo, peace when the days cold. Joy in my payload, hope in my base load. The mindset go speak, truth make me leap. Heart set on me, but my praise go deep. From the head to the feet, let it all.
Good evening, and welcome to this week's episode of Coach's Corner. My name is Dwayne Dwyer. I go by the Mindset Coach. And listen, as always, it is an honor to be able to sit here and share in conversation with you. I look forward to Coach's Corner. I look forward to the conversations that we're going to have. I look forward to your participation as well. So that being said, if you are here, make sure that you look in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. If you're on YouTube, find that icon, put your cursor on that icon, hit the fly out, and then subscribe. Make sure that you subscribe so that you actually, are aware of every time we go live on this channel. Now, let's not stop there. Find the notification bell. Click the drop down arrow beside it and then click notify all, because that's how you know of everything, not just the one show, right? But everything that we talk about on the show. Because here's the thing I'm going to tell you, not just Coach's Corner, but all the other shows, like there's a connection. There's a connection some way and somehow as it pertains to Coach's Corner, the hearts of men, the hearts of women, reframing the image of relationship. They're all intertwined. So if you listen to all of them, you're going to understand something different. So again, that being said, I also want to say, make sure that you share your comments in the comment section, because at the end of the day, we appreciate you. I want you to understand that you are a phenomenal and a functional part of every conversation that we have. Your comments, content, right? Your comment, content, y'all get the hint in a second. Your comment matters. So share your comments, ask your questions, things of that nature. Be in the chat. We do interactivity around here, okay? This is Coach's Corner. And this show, I believe 100% is for you. Now, speaking of that, we've been having some awesome conversations here lately. I want you guys to pay close attention to something, because these conversations I just shared a few seconds ago with the community, these conversations connect. I'm gonna say it again. These conversations connect. I've been giving you the dimensions, but you got to ask yourself, what are the dimensions? I'm going to reveal that to you later, not later today, but later. So you might want to keep coming back so that you can understand where they connect. But each conversation connects, and I want you to grasp that piece. Okay. So we're moving on this week. This week, like I said before, we're on the cusp of talking about dimension number 4. Today is all about application, people. I know we get a lot of stuff. We read a lot of stuff. We digest a lot of information, whether it's TV, internet, podcast, books, audio books, conferences, whatever. We process and digest a lot. But then what? What do we do with it after we process it? Like, I want you to imagine with me for a second. Husband and wife couple, right? And they're having a heated conversation. And they get to the point that they recognize that, let me hear specifically what it is that you're saying. And so let's just say the husband is listening to the heart of the wife. He is hearing exactly what she is saying, paying close attention to her words, and listening attentively. And then upon completion, he regurgitates to her what he perceived her to be saying. And then she confirms his response. Say, yep, that's exactly what I'm saying. And imagine that at the end of that conversation, he actually does absolutely nothing based upon what he's hearing. Like, let that sit in for a second. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So what was the whole purpose of the conversation? What was the whole purpose of me expressing myself to you if you're not going to do anything as it relates to it? Now, caveat, I do not believe just because you express yourself to somebody, they have a responsibility to do something, especially if I did not do the pre-work of the emotions. And that's a whole nother conversation that we're going to talk about on a different episode of Coach's Corner. Raw emotions expressed is not, I say again, is not a entryway for somebody else to do something. You have to do something with your own emotions first before you express them. And what we believe is that we're interconnected with people who actually have that level of understanding. So again, tonight we're talking application, and specifically we're going to start off with talking point number 1. Hearing is not the same thing as doing. I'm going to say that part again. Hearing is not the same thing as doing. I believe wholeheartedly that we get into error when we start thinking or giving ourselves credit for the awareness of the thing and attribute the application of a thing to our character and wanting others to believe that that's who we are, simply because I'm aware of it. I mean, you got to kind of let that sit in for a second, because I believe the hearer only doesn't just fail to grow. I'm sorry I said it that way. The hearer only doesn't just fail to grow. He becomes convinced that he's already there. he becomes convinced that he already has grown. Let me name the trap precisely because it's subtle. You can attend the service, you can take notes, you can even feel the goosebumps. Say amen real loud. Underline the verses and share the clips and change absolutely nothing. And still walk out convinced you. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the trap within itself. See, information feels like transformation. Learning something new gives you the same little rush as doing something new. The sense of progress, the yes, that's it. That's it. That's it right there. Oh, okay. But that feeling, ladies and gentlemen, is counterfeit because nothing in your actual life moved, nothing whatsoever. And the Bible has a brutally honest word for this. It says the person who hears the word and doesn't do it is deceiving their own self, their own selves. Not deceiving other people, but in essence, you deceive yourself. And again, the hearer only, just hearing it, just they don't just fail to grow. They actually become convinced that they already have grown. And that doesn't even pass the common sense test. See, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe made a very interesting statement that I think that we should all process. Knowing is not enough. We must apply. Willing is not enough. We must do. Goethe stacks it in two layers, and both matter. Knowing isn't enough, so information was never the finish line. But watch the second layer. Willing is not enough. It's not even enough to want to. So you can know it and want it and still be nowhere. Ultimately, because how can I say this? Because the currency of transformation was never knowing or wanting, it's doing. I say that part again. The currency of transformation is doing, not knowing or wanting. This is why I believe you cannot separate the law of God from the will of God. It doesn't matter which version you go to. We can go to the New Testament and we say grace. Yes, absolutely. By grace. Absolutely. Faith by grace. Absolutely. But then you still have to have the law because the law becomes the evidence that this is transforming me into the being who can actually do. Okay. So you got it. You got it. I want to kind of press forward because I think as we go in, this conversation starts to make a lot more sense. See, the science underneath it all says, if we can go back to Herman Abingus in the 1980s, and he confirmed by what is called a memory research. Like we know the forgetting curve. Like think about it. Like you know how you've heard it before that you forget the majority of the stuff that you hear. Well, I think we look at the forgetting curve and it says this right here because this kind of helps me to get it. See, within about 24 hours, we forget roughly 67% of what we heard. Now, here's the key. 67% of new information we do nothing with. That's the key. The do nothing with part. 2/3 gone by tomorrow. So you can be listening to Coach's Corner and taking copious notes. And then once you're done, you take that book and you close it and then you sit it down. That's my Coach's Corner right there. A lot of good information in here. Yes, sir. This book right here would change your life. No, it won't. The book has zero life-changing qualities about it. You got to let that sink in. See, if you only hear it, by this time tomorrow, 2/3 of it is already gone. Hearing isn't just a weaker form of applying. It barely even holds weight to a outcome. The truth doesn't stay long enough to change you. unless you do something with it and do it fast, by the way. Now, I think this kind of segues into our question. And again, I think we got some really good questions tonight, y'all. So y'all might want to, lean in and pay close attention. We got some really good questions tonight. Are you saying learning is bad? Some of us genuinely love to study the deep dive, the commentary, the original languages. Is that wrong? It's a great question. Absolutely not. I'm going to start off by saying that without question. No, that's not wrong. I want you, but I want to be clear with what I'm saying, because I think studying alone is a gift. The ability to study, the ability to do a deep dive into something, to dissect and process, right? I don't want to get into the different types of studies, but yes, that's a gift. And for me, especially me, I'm the last person who will ever tell you to stop feeding your mind. But what I'm confronting isn't learning. I'm confronting the notion that we use learning as a substitute for obeying. I'll say it again. I am confronting the notion that we use learning for a substitute for obeying. Study becomes a problem only when it becomes the destination instead of the on-ramp. The test is simple. After you learn it, do it. Okay, well, let me just ask it to you in a question. After you learn it, do you do it? And until we become that intentional, that focused, I think we'll always stay stuck in the notion of learning and getting more learning and getting more learning and getting more learning. And what we don't necessarily realize is that degrees and certifications, that is just the evidence of the test that you took. It is not the evidence that the test that you took actually was the test of life. See, in scripture, I believe knowing was only meant to lead somewhere. To him that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to him it is sin. So keep studying. Just don't let the studying become the place where you hide when it's time to do. Knowledge that never becomes obedient isn't deep. It's just heavy. So I really do love that question, and you know how we always do here on Coach's Corner. I have a question, and you guys have a question, and I'm going to chime in on your question. But yeah, but here's your question. Think back over the last year of everything you've consumed: the sermons, the podcasts, the books, the reels. Now name one, just one specific behavior in your life that is measurably different because of it. If you can't, what have you actually been doing all year? Growing or just collecting? See, I believe the average person who hears this question, they're going to get a little quiet. And it's not a bad thing. That to me is an awareness thing. You're going to get a little quiet. And the quiet is the lesson. See, we get really good at consuming hundreds of hours of data and can't name a single change behavior. And that's not because the teaching was bad. It's because the consumption was mistaken for change. Being present is not the catalyst to change. I do admit that you have to be present in order for change to actually happen. Be present in what, though? That's the key. See, if this part of this conversation, this early, is resonating with you, don't drown in shame over the wasted years. Don't drown in shame over what you're hearing. Don't drown in shame on what you're learning about yourself. Just get honest. Intake was never the goal. And let that honesty be the very thing that finally moves you from the menu to the meal. And with that said, ladies and gentlemen, that takes us to talking point number 2. Because I think talking point number 2 really starts to peel the layers back. See, application happens in the ordinary, not the dramatic. Now, I'm going to say it again. Application happens in the ordinary, not the dramatic. You do not rise to the level of your revelation. You fall to the level of your practice. I'll say it again. You do not rise to the level of your revelation. You fall to the level of your practice. Here's why a lot of people can't Here's what a lot of people aren't applying. I won't say can't. They can, but they aren't. And this one, I think, is kind of like when the weight comes off just a little. See, you've been waiting for a moment, a mountaintop, a dramatic, tearful, once for all breakthrough where everything changes at once. And because that lightning moment rarely comes, you keep waiting to start. But here's the deal: application was never designed to live in the dramatic, it lives in the ordinary. It's the single prayer you actually pray tomorrow morning, the one hard conversation you had this week, the 10 minutes in the Word before the phone call. Nobody's watching. Nothing feels epic. And that is actually where transformation is quietly manufactured. But here's the hard truth: you do not rise to the level of your revelation, you fall to the level of your practice. What you repeat in private is who you actually become, not what you heard on your best Sunday. See, we aren't what we repeatedly do. I say again, we aren't what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Said by Will Durant, summarizing Aristotle. See, excellence and holiness is not a dramatic act. It's repeated. It's a repeated one. I'm sorry. Do you do it from the source of what you know or what you want to show? You got to let this set in for a second. See, researchers at the University College in London, led by Philippa Lally, tracked how long it actually takes a new behavior to become automatic, to stop requiring willpower and start running on its own. And the alarming statistic says this: on average, 66 days. And the range across people are wide, anywhere from 18 days to 254 days. So even when we look at when we look at the average, where most people start seeing this change, it's at 66 days. Of course, we're talking behavior, so it won't be the exact same for everybody, but 66 days is the average. Now, two things I preach here. One, it takes longer than 21 days. Everybody keep quoting. That 21-day thing was a myth. So if you quit at day 21 because it felt hard, you quit right before it was about to get easier. And two, every one of those 66 days is ordinary. No one feels transformed on day 34. You just show up and do the small thing again. That's not the boring part before the breakthrough. That is the breakthrough. See, in the book of Luke, chapter 16, it says, he that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in much. And he that is unjust in the least is unjust also in much. I would tell you that that's dating advice, but that's a whole nother conversation. The book of Zechariah, chapter 4 says that, for who hath despised the day of small beginnings? Small things done incrementally throughout time consistently creates the necessary habit that you need for change. The question here, I think, is good. If this is you, I want to speak to you directly. Doesn't God move in big, sudden moments too? The Damascus Road, the instant deliverance. Why are you emphasizing the slow and the small? That, to me, I think, is a phenomenal question. And my response is, I am not inclined to say what God is. In fact, I'm really careful, right? I'm really careful to not say what God can or can't do. That's not my lane. Can he do? Absolutely. If the minute that we tie the word God, the minute that we create a question, and that question includes, can God do? The answer is automatically yes. But that's not the point. But watch what happened even to Paul after Damascus, right? We got to go back and consider Damascus. The dramatic moment gave him a new direction. It was years of obscure, ordinary faithfulness that made him Paul. I believe the big moments start you, the small ones shape you. And here's my concern. I believe most people use the hope of a dramatic moment as an excuse to skip the ordinary obedience that's available right now. Don't despise the day of small beginnings while you wait for a big one. If God sends lightning, praise him for the lightning. But while you wait, build the habit. Deliverance is often a door. Discipleship is the walk through it. So I really appreciate that question and thank you for that. And again, as always, your guys' question. And I want to start off by reading it as it scrolls across the screen. Forget the mountaintop for a second. If you did just one small obedient thing every single day for the next 66 days, one, in the area you most want to see change, who would you be at the end? And be honest. Be honest with yourself. What was really stopping you? Or what has really stopped you? Is it that the small thing feels too small to matter? See, when people actually picture it, 66 days of one small faithful act, they realize that the person on the other side is almost unrecognizably better, and it startles them. What stops them is exactly what they suspect. The small thing feels too insignificant to bother with, and they despise it and keep wanting for something worthy of their potential. But God has always worked the other way. Faithful in little, then trusted with much. The small thing isn't beneath your calling. It's the road to it. That takes us to talking point number 3. See, excuse me. Revelation you don't apply becomes a lie you believe. Every time you hear a truth and don't act on it, you train yourself to hear that truth without acting. That sounded so basic. Like, think about it. It sounded so simple. Every time you hear truth and don't act on it, you train yourself to hear that truth without acting. See, I want to be honest with you guys tonight. A truth you hear and don't obey does not just sit there quietly, harmless, waiting for you to get around to it. It curdles. Because every time you hear a truth and don't act on it, you train yourself to hear that truth without acting. You build a callus. And worse, you begin to mistake the hearing for the doing. You've heard the message on forgiveness so many times that you feel like a forgiving person, while the bitterness is still sitting right there, untouched in your chest. That's deception James warned about. And it's the same mirror we opened the whole series on awareness. James says the hearer only is like a man who looks at himself in a mirror, sees exactly what he needs to see to change, and walks away and immediately forget what he looks like. What manner of man am I? Or what manner of man is he? He saw it. He just didn't do anything about it. A truth seen and refused doesn't make you more free. It makes you more confident and less changed. More confident in the unchanged, which is the single most dangerous condition a person can be in. The single most dangerous condition a person can be in. See, Daniel Boorstin said the greatest obstacle to discovery is not ignorance. It is the illusion of knowledge. Let me show it to you because I want you guys to see it. I want you to mentally see it yourself. The greatest obstacle to discovery is not ignorance. It is the illusion of knowledge. Read it slowly, digest it, process it. The obstacle isn't not knowing. It's thinking you already know. Because the moment you believe you've got it, you stop pursuing it. Think about it in this way. The person who knows they don't forgive will, in most cases, go do the work. I say again, the person who thinks they don't forgive will, in most cases, go do the work. The person who feels like they forgive but hasn't is stuck and doesn't even know they're stuck. Ignorance can be fixed. The illusion of knowledge locks the door and tells you you're already home. What is the illusion of knowledge, though? It is a cognitive bias where people think they understand a complex topic or mechanism much better than they actually do. Now, here's a challenge for you. Don't do it now. Do it on the replay. See, even with me saying this, someone is going to go, like somebody's going to leave this live view and then try to do it right now just so they can have the answer. That is exactly how it works, though. You'll get it. Don't worry about it. The challenge is for you to send me an email. Don't AI, don't Google. I want you to actually think. Think into it. I want you to send me the response to this. What is the correlation between the illusion of knowledge and the Dunning-Kruger effect? Send it to that email that's on the screen. info@totalmindsetshift.com. Like say again, what is the correlation between the illusion of knowledge and the Dunning-Kruger effect? I want to see your responses. This is going to be good. See, researchers Rosenblatt and Keel demonstrated this with something they named the illusion of explanatory depth. They asked people to rate how well they understood everyday objects, a zipper, a sewing machine, a bicycle. And at no surprise, people rated themselves confidently high. Then the researcher said, okay, explain exactly how it works, step by step. And their confidence collapsed. They discovered in real time that they didn't actually understand the thing they were so sure they understood. Now, if people are that deceived about a zipper, how much more deceived are we about whether we actually applied a truth? You feel like you've got humility handled until life asks you to explain it with your behavior. And the confidence collapses. Feeling like you've applied it and actually applying it are two completely different things. And only one of them changes your life. See, James chapter 1, verse 23 through 24 says, for if any be a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like unto a man beholding his natural face in glass. For he beholdeth himself and goeth his way, and straightway forgetteth what manner of man he was. I wonder how many people struggle with that. So, great question here. How does a man even know if they're fooling themselves? By definition, if I'm deceived, I can't see it, right? To your question, you're absolutely right. But I don't just want to, well, let's just get into it because I think this question is I think there's a lot to it. But working backwards, by definition, deceived means I don't know. You're absolutely right. But like, let's unpack this. Like, you don't detect self-deception by examining your feelings. You detect it by examining your fruit. Feelings lie. Fruit doesn't. Stop asking, do I feel like a patient person? And start asking, when was the last time I actually responded with patience under pressure? Pressure is only where you have to, okay, you get it, you get it. Stop asking, do I believe in generosity? And go look at your giving. Jesus handed us a lie detector. By their fruits ye shall know them. And that includes knowing yourself. Now, I said I was going to unpack it, and that part really sounded simple. But here's where it gets tricky. I believe we often conflate self-awareness and self-knowledge. Now, some of you heard me say this before, and that's fine. But here's where this is, pay close attention because this is key. We often conflate self-awareness with self-knowledge. Awareness is the basic perception or feeling that something exists. Knowledge is the deep collection of facts, information, and skills gained through study and or experience. That said, I believe awareness exists on the edge of knowledge. And if deception is the art of hiding the truth, lying, or tricking someone to make them believe something that is not true, then deception exists within the base of knowledge. Okay. In order for me to deceive you, it has to come from the seat of what I know. So deception is exercised within the base of knowledge. We got to pay close attention to that, because I don't know enough about what I'm aware of to deceive you. Now, that may not be 100% fact for an entire population, but I am sure that that is for the majority. Awareness, knowledge, and deception. What are we talking about here? Metacognition, which describes different states or levels of how we process, evaluate, and misunderstand our own thinking and reality. This is exactly why we spent all of last week on accountability, because the fastest way to pierce your own blind spot is to let one honest person tell you what they actually see. I know we mentioned deception, but here's the funny part about it. We talk a lot about deceiving other people, but what happens when I deceive myself? And I've deceived myself for so long that I'm actually believing the lie that I'm telling myself without any evidence to support the thing that I think that I'm doing. You can't always read your own mirror. That's what the other person is for. So my challenge to you guys, when it comes down to your question, I want you to pick one truth. Pick the one truth you've heard the most times in your life, the one you could preach in your sleep. Forgiveness, trusting God, your identity in Christ. Now ask the hard one. Have you actually applied it, or have you just heard it so many times that you feel like you have? A stranger examined only your behavior this week, not your beliefs, your behavior. Would they conclude you live it? See, this is the question that quietly wrecks people in the best way, because almost everyone has that one truth they've heard 1,000 times and never once obeyed. And they've mistaken familiarity for obedience. If a stranger watch only your week, the verdict is usually humbling. But don't let it crush you. Let it free you. The gap you just felt between what you know and what you live, that gap is not your condemnation. It's your assignment. That is the exact place your renewal actually starts. And since we're talking about renewal actually starts, I think it's only good to get into the fact that application isn't willpower. It's the next step of obedience. In most cases, you think you haven't applied because you lack willpower. You think if you could just want it more, grit harder, muster more discipline, you'd finally do it. So you keep waiting to feel strong enough, or waiting until you can see the whole plan. But biblical application was never about seeing the whole staircase or summoning superhuman willpower. It was about obeying the next revealed step. God gives you a lamp for your feet, not floodlights for the whole road. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet. A lamp at your feet shows you one step. Enough light for the next act of obedience, and no more on purpose. So you walk by trust instead of by sight. And here's the part that takes the pressure off entirely. You're not the power source. One of my favorite scriptures says, it's God which worketh in you both to will and to do. He supplies both the wanting and the doing. Your job was never to manufacture the strength. Your job is to take the step. And grace meets you in the motion, not before. See, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. made a statement. He said, you don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step. And we gotten really good at quoting that simply because, well, it's Dr. Martin Luther King. But he said that about a movement whose end he could not see. And it's the exact posture of faith. You've been standing at the bottom of the staircase, demanding to see all the way to the top before you lift your foot. But faith doesn't get the whole staircase. Faith gets the next step. The next step is always enough because the God who lit it is already standing on the one after it. Harvard researchers Teresa Amabile and Stephen Kramer analyzed nearly 12,000 daily diary entries from 238 people to discover what actually drives motivation and momentum. Their number one finding, they called it the progress principle, was that the single most powerful motivator is making progress in meaningful work. And here's the kicker. It did not require big wins. Small wins had a surprisingly strong effect. Do you hear what that means for you? Motivation is not the thing you need before you take the step. Motivation is what the step produces. You've had it backwards your whole life, waiting to feel motivated so you can act. It's the opposite. You act, you get the small win, and the small wins creates the motivation for the next one. Don't wait to feel like it. Take the step and let the step light the fire. The Bible says that the word is that thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. The book of Philippians says in clear English, for it is God which worketh in you both to will and to do of his good pleasure, not mine, his. So what about the person who's taken the first step 100 times and keeps falling back? Isn't there a willpower problem somewhere in there? I mean, I do understand why you would ask that question. But here's the thing that I want you to grasp, because I'm not preaching cheap ease. In fact, if I'm preaching at all, I would be preaching the right power source. Here's what usually happens. Here's what's usually happening with the person who starts 100 times and fall back. They're starting alone, and they're starting too big. Two fixes. First, shrink the step until it's almost embarrassingly too small or embarrassingly small. So small you cannot fail at it, because the step you actually a mystery. It's usually the very thing that you keep changing the subject away from. The reason you haven't taken it is that you're demanding to see the outcome before you'll obey the instructions. I'm going to say that again, because I think somebody needs to hear it. The reason you haven't taken that next step is because you're demanding to see the outcome before you obey the instructions. It sounds kind of backwards to me. See, that is sight, not faith. So the invitation this week is small and terrifying at the same time. Take the one step you already see and trust God, and trust the God who lit it to show you the next one once your foot is off the ground. And that takes us to this very important key point, because without this one, I think this is where, well, let me just put it up on the screen. It's all about the application audit. And I'm drinking like some strawberry pineapple juice. Man, that is so good. Organic at that. I don't even know what that means. I'm joking, y'all. Stop. Pen and paper in hand, ready? All right, here we go. All right. One. Name your one. Out of everything you heard lately, don't try to apply 10 things. Okay? Ask, what is the one truth God has already made clear that I have not yet obeyed? I believe you already know it, so you might as well just name it. Number two, shrink it to 24 hours. Take that one truth and turn it into a single action. So small you can complete it before this time tomorrow. Not become a person of prayer. Pray for 5 minutes at 6 a.m. Not forgive him. Write the first two sentences of the text. Small enough that willpower isn't even required. Number three, tie it to a cue and a witness. Attach it to something you already do. When the coffee brews I pray XYZ. And tell your accountability partner from last week what the step is and when you'll have it done. Remember, one truth, one 24-hour action, one cue, and one witness. That is how a hearer becomes a doer. Now, think, let's see, Benjamin Franklin says here, well done is better than well said. I say again, well done is better than well said. See, Franklin put an entire theology of application into 5 words. He said, well said. Franklin put an entire theology of application into 5 words. Well said is the sermon you loved, the notes you took, the clip you shared. Well done is the thing you actually did. Well done is the thing you actually did something about. Well done is the thing you actually did about it. And Franklin's ranking is God's ranking. Heaven is not moved by how well you said amen. It's moved by what you did on Monday. Well done, those are the 2 words you're actually working towards. Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Not well heard, well done. See, psychologists Hashal Shiran and Thomas Webb has spent years measuring what they call the intention behavior gap, the space between deciding to do something and actually doing it. And this is what they came up with. They're finding about 54% of people who form a genuine intention to act fail to follow through. More than half. And intentions on their own explain less than a quarter of whether the behavior actually happens. But here's the good news buried in that hard number. If half of all good intentions die in the gap, then the gap, not the intention, is the real battlefield. And everything we just built is a bridge across it. Shrink it, cue it, and let somebody witness it. You don't need a bigger intention. You've had big intentions for years. You need a smaller step, a witness, and the other side of the gap. See, the book of James says that, but whosoever looketh into the perfect law of liberty and continueth therein, he being not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this man shall be blessed in his deeds. So someone leaves here fired up, shrink the step, takes it for 3 days, and then life hits and they miss a day. In their head, they've blown it. They quit. What do you say to them? Honestly, my response is this. The miss was never the problem. Quitting after the miss is the only real failure available to you. Listen to me good. You will miss a day. Everyone misses a day. The renewed life is not built by people who never failed. It's built by people who get back up faster. Resilience, the ability to snap back. A just man falleth 7 times and riseth up again. Notice, the just man falls. He's just defined by rising, not the falling. The enemy's whole game is to use one missed day to sell you the lie that the whole thing was ruined. So you'll abandon the habit that was actually working. Don't hand him that. Miss a day, skip the shame, and just take the next step. Progress was never perfection. It was persistence. So great question. And again, my question for you is this. You've heard a whole message about doing. So here's the only question that decides whether tonight mattered. What is the one small thing you will actually do in the next 24 hours? And are you willing to say it out loud to one person before you leave this space? Because the truth you're willing to name to a witness is the truth you're actually going to do. The people who say their step out loud to a witness follow through at a far higher rate than the people who keep it private. And deep down, we all know that, which is exactly why naming it out loud feels so exposing. That exposure is the point. A step you announce is a step you're in, the step that you're on the hook for. So don't leave tonight with a vague, I'll try better. Leave with a sentence. By this time tomorrow, I will have XYZ done, and this person will know about it. That sentence is the whole difference between another message you heard and the first day of a life you actually changed. Now, I want us to be crystal clear about the entirety of it all. Because if we're not clear about what it is that we're doing, then we might be doing a thing. And again, we don't necessarily get the outcomes of the thing that we're saying that we're doing. Okay? So let's bring it home. Hold on. Now, let's bring it home. Hearing was never the same as doing. Information just feels like transformation. Application doesn't live on the mountaintop. It's built in the ordinary, one small repeated act. A truth you refuse to obey doesn't sit there harmless. It deceives you into thinking you've changed when you haven't. But you were never the power source. God supplies both the wanting and the doing, and all he asks is the next step, not the whole staircase. So you become a doer the same way anyone does. One truth, one 24-hour action, one cue, one witness. Now, where exactly are you hearing and not doing? See, this Saturday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're talking relational intelligence. Because I believe a lot of people hear and not do in the space of relationship, which is why I gave that example at the beginning of the conversation. Everything is relationship. And until you get that, you'll keep segregating your efforts while giving yourself credit for the achievement you never made. Get your free relational intelligence profile prior to this free webinar. This webinar, in fact, let me give it to you right now because I don't want you guys to be left in the cold. Okay? That's what is on your screen. Because here's the thing I want you to understand. This webinar is RSVP only. It's free. I say again, this free webinar is RSVP only. So if you haven't reserved your seat, please do so now. Scan this QR code or go to the mindsetcoach.academy/registration. I say again, the mindsetcoach.academy/registration. Now, here's tonight's assignment before you sleep. Take the RIP, the relational intelligence profile. Name your one thing, shrink it to 24 hours, and text it to the person you chose last week. Well said is this message. Well done is that text. Renew the mind, transform the life. I'm Dwayne Dwyer, and next week, Dimension 5, action. Because application is the daily step, but action is the big, scary move you've been circling for years. The call you won't make, the door you won't open, the leap you keep rescheduling. Why the distance between you and your breakthrough was never doubt. It was delay. Bring your courage to that one because you're going to need it.
Mindset shift, we move. Mindset shift, new groove. Coach's Corner with Mindset Academy.